Good evening, Pat, and good evening all. ARCO commends the IDFOC for organising these webinars. The association, whose membership reflects a considerable reservoir of expertise and experience on defence, has made comprehensive submissions for the White Paper on Defence, the White Paper on Foreign Policy and External Relations, and recently the National Security Strategy. Whereas ARCO welcomes the government's intent to convene a commission, the association's preference is for an all-encompassing independent commission on defence, addressing defence policy rather than one confined to the defence forces. Unfortunately, the programme for government reneged on advancing the strategic issues of military neutrality and the triple lock. Military neutrality, for example, will not provide an adequate self-reliance, deterrence or credible defence capability against commonality hybrid threats such as cyber attacks. Consulting with all stakeholders, the Commission should be internationally led. An independent membership should be representative of both civilian and military experts having an appropriate balance of operational and academic experience. With the emphasis on the European dimension, members should be drawn from the areas of national security, defence, foreign affairs, the European defence and security environment, and public sector governance. Military expertise should include strategic defence planners from an EU member state, ideally from a country with whom we have partnership under the umbrella of battle groups. The Commission provides a golden opportunity to provide our politicians and indeed our citizens with a stronger understanding of defence, including the roles of Óglaigh na hÉireann. Unfortunately, the proposed terms of reference reflect, in my opinion and the opinion of ARCO, a compromised response to fragmented political challenges. As the government's principal military advisor, the Chief of Staff must have a role in developing the terms of reference. Likewise, as experts in their respective fields, the Commission members should also be involved in this process. ARCO contends that Ireland, with a commitment to collective security, must possess a core military capability on a contingent basis, consisting of a balanced and sustainable nucleus of land, air, and naval components, including a cyber defence capability catering for both deterrence and defence. The government, elected members of the Oireachtas, senior public sector officials, including diplomats, must fully understand the implications and application of defence policy, military strategy, military capabilities, military operations, and indeed military limitations. In the context of Ireland's defence commitment under the UN Charter and EU treaties, the Commission should define Ireland's defence policy framework. It should identify defence objectives to shape the strategic environment. It should reinforce defence relationships and security links with our partners. It should commit an appropriate GDP percentage spend on defence. And finally, it should defend Ireland's ability and willingness for an elevated focus on deterrence and defence, using a credible and agile conventional military force to defeat all threats to Ireland's national interests and values. A word of caution: we should retain a realistic level of ambition. After all, defence is not a national priority. Ladies and gentlemen, since 1990, the Defence Forces were involved in a significant reform process. The 1998 reorganisation was defined as the minimum necessary to meet Ireland's national and international defence and security requirements. The principal reform enablers which influenced change from 1990 through to 2020 include the Gleeson Report, EAG studies, Price-Waterhouse Review, the review of the Reserve Defence Forces in 1999, the 2000 White Paper, the 2012 reorganisation of the Army component, and the 2015 White Paper. Outstanding enablers include the White Paper Implementation Plan and the government's high-level plan which is addressing recruitment and retention issues, both of which must be re-energised before embarking on a commission. Likewise, ARCO strongly advocates that the government's proposed permanent pay review body must be immediately established. For the record, since the Public Sector Pay Commission's report was published, ARCO has called for the establishment of a statutory-based, permanent and independent pay commission for the Defence Forces. Using three reform enablers, Gleeson, EAG1 and Price Waterhouse, I would like to advance relevant issues pertaining to the Commission. Whereas its specified terms of reference focused on pay and conditions of service, the Gleeson Commission highlighted significant organisational and structural deficiencies requiring attention. Gleeson cited the Public Services Organisation Review Group in 1969, which referred to, and I quote, a rigorous interpretation by the Department of Defence of the requirement of civil control and an extensive duplication of function between the Secretariat and General Headquarters, unquote. De Gleeson observed centralised and insurmountable bureaucracy, a sense of powerlessness and disillusion amongst military personnel, and military proposals subjected to further close scrutiny by the Secretariat. Gleeson recommended that a review be undertaken by professional management consultants on military-civilian relationships. Following on from Gleeson, the Efficiency Audit Group examined both elements of the department, namely the Secretariat and the three military branches. Apparently, this was the last time that an external independent review of the Secretariat has occurred. A number of radical proposals for the reorganisation of the civilian element were made by EAG1, such as its role should be confined to policy and audit, and that its establishment should be reduced to 100. In parallel, recommendations were made to appoint the Garda Commissioner and the Chief of Staff as accounting officers. In July 2006, under the Garda Síochána Acts, the role of accounting officer for the Garda vote was transferred to the Garda Commissioner. The earlier proposal for the Chief of Staff was successfully opposed by the Secretariat, who continued to exercise financial control to maintain the upper hand on the Defence Forces. For many years, the Secretariat has protected its interests and will, in ARCO's opinion, endeavour to influence the composition, the terms of reference and the recommendations of the Commission. A review of the Secretariat, especially the civilian-military interface, must be included in the Commission's terms of reference. Moving on to Price Waterhouse. Price Waterhouse was tasked to develop feasible options for the overhaul, and I emphasize the word overhaul, of the Defence Forces structures and systems. This was the first external review of Óglaigh na hÉireann since the foundation of the state. The review was seen as challenging, wide-ranging process conducted over 6 months by the core management team, by a very senior Canadian military advisory team, and by Defence Force headquarters. It covered a wide range of topics ranging from major strategic issues and principles to detailed operational issues. Regarding its methodology, Price Waterhouse initially gained an understanding of the defence and security environment. It critically reviewed the situation against the framework of redefined roles for the Defence Forces. And then, having regard to the threat scenario and assigned roles, Price Waterhouse then developed a set of force characteristics, following which they designed a set of options and formulated decision criteria to allow them to evaluate 3 identified options. And finally, they made 87 recommendations. Addressing an implied task concerning the military and civilian interface, Price Waterhouse recommended that the Council of State be re-energised and the establishment of what later became the Strategic Management Committee. ARCO supports the call for the regeneration of the Council of Defence. As an aside, ladies and gentlemen, one should note that the Defence Forces is not represented on the Ministerial Advisory Group. But moving back to Pricewaterhouse, based on a decision criteria, 3 options were identified by Pricewaterhouse, with the recommended option being a 2-brigade group, including a task force headquartered in Dublin and a national training centre. Pricewaterhouse recommended that the government's assessment of its report should focus on major strategic issues and avoid being sidelined into unnecessary levels of operation detail. Sound advice for 2020. Pricewaterhouse requested that its recommendations be addressed during a lengthy implementation process. And despite being actively involved in the process, it's important to note that the general staff were highly critical of the final report. Message for this webinar: in the context of the Commission, be careful what you wish for. The government approved a 3-year reform plan outlined in the Defence Forces Review Implementation Plan, which was published in February 1996. It proactively implemented the plan. Substantial efforts were made to minimise resultant turbulence within all ranks of the Defence Forces. The impact of change was profoundly felt throughout the organisation. The overarching result had the Defence Forces properly structured, organised, manned, equipped and deployed, providing a credible deterrent and response to armed aggression, and producing an agile structure to implement its assigned roles and to expand on mobilisation. In particular, the reorganisation provided a rewarding professional career for officers and enlisted personnel in the Permanent Defence Force, the Army Reserve and Ashlew Marie. I asked the question, can the government's commission deliver similar outputs? Thank you.